Welcome to the first episode of the Coffee and Poo Bags podcast. We're finally here, Paul. We've done it. It's been something we've talked about for many months. The first thing we'll talk about very quickly is the name, the Coffee and Poo Bag podcast. What's it about? Well, first of all, the podcast itself is about business. It's about talking to veterans who have left the military and gone into business. So why have we called it the Coffee and Poo Bag podcast? Paul, do you want to enlighten us as to why we've called it that?
Yeah, so we, once I was out of the military, I moved to where I live now. And then once you got out of the military, you moved to where you were previous, right? And every day you would ring up at a particular amount of time. And it just happened to be that you're walking the dogs and you had a coffee and you had a poo bag in your hand every single time. And it was a bit weird. So you went, yeah, I've got a coffee and poo bag. And we both said at the same time, that'd be an amazing name for a podcast. Thus the name Coffee and Poo Bag. It's that simple. You called me, we walked every day, you had a coffee and a poo bag.
And what this fell into, my phone must have maybe 100 photos on it, probably more, of me carrying a coffee with a bag of dog poo. Not just any poo bag. I've got dogs. It's not weird. I don't go around like looking for random poo.
No.
We've called it the CAPB Podcast. The name has stuck, but it's about business. It's about speaking to veterans who have served, the British forces and have left and have started businesses. And not only they've left and looked for jobs, but they've started businesses and are doing really well. So I am delighted to introduce our first guest on the first episode of the CAPB Podcast, Wayne Smallman, who is the founder of Milscrum. Welcome, Wayne.
Welcome, Wayne.
Hi, how you doing? You guys grow up on catchphrases as kids? Say what you see type of thing.
Yeah.
It's a very simple system, mate. You can't go wrong.
Can't go wrong. I mean, me being the higher intellectual, service member, being an engineer, and him being a lonely medic, obviously, I have to dumb it down slightly for him. So
he definitely has to play it down.
Can't stop 10%, can we? So.
Yeah, and as you can see from Paul's hairline, he's had a very stressful career. But enough about us, Wayne. Tell us about your military service.
Okay, so I joined the British Army and the Royal Electrical Mechanical Engineers in 2004. Tender age of 16, and finished that. I went off to do my vehicle mechanic training, and it was at that point I got posted on to Germany afterwards, and that was my first experience of the Green Army, the real stuff, which was a lot of fun in Germany. Lots of drinking, quite a social environment, and I loved it there. I only did 2 years in Germany, and then got posted up to sunny Scotland, where I joined the army recruiting team, and that was the first time I was put in front of people to like present and do certain things like that. I was a 18-year-old, 19-year-old lad with a very southern accent, and I was delivering presentations on the REME to lots of Scottish school kids, and that didn't really like me much at all. After that, I went down to Bath, and I did my further training with the Signal Regiment, and then I went through down to Gloucester, and then finished up at Tidworth on Challenger 2 tanks, which is pretty awesome. Did a couple of tours, did two trips to Kenya, one trip to Kenya, 2 to Canada, 1 of Afghanistan, and yeah, really enjoyed my time. Lots of sports, rugby, skiing, all of it. It was a good time. Enjoyed it very much. I finished up with 10 years, I think, 10 and a half years under my belt.
Mate, it sounds a lot like the beginning of both our careers, actually. Paul and I both felt a considerable amount of time in Germany. And it was then, I mean, I joined in 1998, and that was, in Germany, there was still quite a footprint. It was like, you got paid extra money to be in Germany, but everything was cheaper. There was literally no negatives to being in Germany. Zero. The
only negative we had from Germany was I was in Germany for the World Cup in 2006, but then we got poked during the group stages in the quarters. We were in Carlisle on an exercise. Go figure. We did get seeing England get knocked out by Portugal, though, so that was fun.
Perfect. So, you served for 10 years. You had a great career in the REME. And so, from your military service, Wayne, you're now the founder and director of a business. So, why did you set up Milscrum?
So Milscrum was a bit of a blend between my passion from my military service, all the things I've learned, all the experiences I gained and skills that I took from my time in the military. And then I started studying a framework called Scrum about 5 years ago, when I moved from engineering into more project-based roles in sales and then a project management role. I started studying it because I literally stumbled across it. A guy called Ryan Brook, who was kind of my first person I touched on it, and when I read the guide for it, it was just mapped very closely to my military career. I liked everything about it, similar values, similar sized teams that I used to work within, 8 to 10 people, and I used to always plan for the short term as well. So the mixture of the two, I was very passionate about both, and so Milscrum came together, very much like the Coffee and Poo Bag podcast, Say What You See, was formed. Which we're about just over a year old now, and it's going well. Got a good long contract, and we've delivered 3 workshops in total now. So really excited with the future of where it's going.
I mean, Milscrum's I've done some work with you, and we work in a very similar arena. And I think what you've done is enormous. You've seen a gap and you've bridged that, what the military can bring to business. And I think you should never downplay what comes about, because I've seen you in action. I've seen what you do. It's a huge step forward. Where do you see it fitting in the military and the business? Do you see like a space for you, or do you see like that's where I want to be with regards to the military and business, and I want to support one or the other? What's the dream?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I see it. I mean, I would really love to work with the military again as a civilian. Because I like how forward-leaning they are, how engaged they are when I've run workshops with the military as well. So I see the business working quite closely with the military in the future, I hope. And that's kind of the way I'm networking and building those connections to kind of be closer in that market, or a supplier of choice, or to defence primes as well. I think there's lots of value in what I have to offer, with regards just to breaking it down and doing the simple things well. And that's the essence of a good soldier, is doing this basic soldiering really well. Whereas I want to do the basics of delivery and development really, really well, and help people refine their systems where they made it really complex, and just bring it to basics and go from there.
Well, you mentioned there that you've done a few workshops, and I know you've done some workshops with a REME unit. How successful was it? The first one. How successful? How did you? Was it just like an insight into Scrum and Agile, or did you see tangible changes in what they were doing by introducing your processes?
Yeah, so the first workshop we did was literally just a scratch and itch. It was a bit of an experiment. It was completely free, and it was just a morning's workshop. So I was invited down. We simply did an introduction to Scrum, understand their system, so how we get faulty equipment from broken all the way back into fully fit into the user's hands. And then we role played with some Scrum to kind of apply that learning immediately. They took away that learning, and within 3 months, I got feedback from the officer, and they had increased their equipment availability by 15%, which blew me away. And it was just from a morning's workshop. And all the 10 years I was serving as a mechanic, I never increased the equipment availability that much. So to do it in the morning and help be part of that journey for them was amazing. So I was really proud of that achievement.
15% is phenomenal, man. And you did it for freezies. That's absolutely phenomenal, and I'm sure there are opportunities out there for that people would scream at you to improve productivity or whatever, to improve anything by 15%. I think that's phenomenal, mate. That's a huge achievement. Wayne, I think it's. I do think it's impressive. And I think it's bold, because you're essentially going to speak to military units. You're looking at their system and you're saying try something else. And with the military traditionally being quite a stoic organization, it's done the same things for the same time. I think that's it's a huge thing, and you're clearly getting marked success. So I think you should take a pat on the back for that. It's a huge achievement, mate, and you should be proud.
Changing mindsets is massive in anything that we do anyway, which is it's what it seems that you kind of got a hook in there how to do it. And I want to ask a question because the theme at the moment is very sort of military orientated, and I'm just wondering, does Milscrum just deal with the military, or do you branch out to other sort of areas?
It's definitely an aspiration of mine. Very early in the maturity of where Milscrum is as a business at the moment. But yeah, it's definitely an aspiration of mine. A big kind of thing that we talk about with Milscrum whenever we turn up to a workshop is we meet you where you are. We try to understand your system and visualize it as well. And then we can start working with you to highlight bottlenecks and get the answers from you how to solve them. So you've got skin in the game and you can develop your own system and improve it. It's not just about applying Scrum over the top of something. It's about enhancing and complementing your current system without chucking the baby out with the bathwater type of approach. A lot of other consultants may come in and just plaster over a framework that works for them and has worked for them in the past, because it's not a cookie cutter approach. Every industry is different, every business is different, and every person is different. So you've got to apply it and meet these people where they are. So.
Oh, definitely. So in regards to Milscrum itself, obviously you say you've only been going just over 12 to nearly 18 months. What do you think the lessons learned have been from taking that massive leap into going, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start my own business. And because it is big, we all have taken on this call that massive leap when we finished our military careers. It's a big leap. It's a leap without coining a certain Disney movie into the unknown. But when you started the business, like lessons learned from there to then fast forward today, like how have you found it all?
So I started studying business management about 6 years ago, and that gave me a taster for understanding what a business may look like and how, if I wanted to own a business or not. And I was also mentored really well to be able to through that business management degree, where I started understanding those basics. When I decided to start a business, I decided to start it about something I was really passionate about, my military service and Scrum as a framework. And I've obviously built upon that as well since then, from like a theoretical perspective and practical perspective. But the first like kind of lesson learned was find something that you're passionate about. I can imagine if I was doing this as a project management consultancy, I would be as half invested in it. Or if I did it as an engineering consultancy, I wouldn't be as half invested in it because it's not my passion anymore. But I am really passionate about helping people, visualizing work and understanding systems and promoting flow through those systems and deliver so it can deliver value to the customers and that are using it or receiving it. So that's the number one lesson. If you're going to start a business, it's got to be something you're really passionate about. I also sought help from people that I knew in my industry, and also I'd started businesses that were slightly more mature than mine and in different industries as well. Just to seek advice, like what type of insurances to get, who to go with, accountants, all those types of things. So just asking people and getting a few different approaches of people that you trust. Those are two of my top pieces of advice for anyone starting a business: make sure it's something you're passionate about, and just ask people that you trust about certain things, like, or just to run you through, because I wouldn't have thought about going to different suppliers of accountants. I would have gone to the local person on the corner, whereas I started with one online account and I've moved from a person back to someone local, because I prefer that in-person interaction. But those people as well, accountants especially, will help you as well, with regards to setting up the company, going through all the HMRC stuff as well. So yeah.
Yes, I mean, so there's a
That's
lot
my
to
advice.
do. I think your advice is good, and I
Yeah.
think that you're absolutely right. There's a lot to do when setting up a business, and I think some people could get, if there is anyone listening to the podcast who feels that they're on the fence about whether to start a business or not, taking that leap's a huge thing, like Paul mentioned. And I think your thing about passion is really important. You at no point have you talked about profit. At no point have you talked about generating money. You've talked about helping people. You've talked about something you're passionate about. You've talked about blending the two careers you've had previous. And that's a massive takeaway for me. If you're passionate about something, then why not? Then why not? And the fact that you've blended those things. And the other thing I think is really important, I think, is almost the way I interpret, linked directly to your military career, which is ask people who know what they're doing. Have the humility to ask people. You go into business and you say, I need accountants and I need HMRC and I need this and I need marketing, I need insurance. If you've never done that, then you're in a difficult space. Whereas if, like you said, you have this trusted circle of people, or you use your network for people to say, you should try this, or you should make sure you've got this. I think that's massive, mate. And they're two things I'll definitely take away from this, is that you talk about passion and you talk about a good network.
But one to add, make sure you get a Canva account as well. Canva account for your own marketing is save you a fortune. Just to get playing with it and use it for promoting your own business and brand is really it's been so crucial for me. And it's really simple to use, and it's just a lot easier to get stuff out there as well. So yeah, that's been a crucial thing for me.
The aim of the CAPB podcast was always to be a micro podcast, and I could listen to you talk about Milscrum all day. I know we've got similar passions, but the idea is we'll keep it nice and succinct within 15 minutes. So I guess the final part of the podcast, and the final part of all the podcasts, is going to be an opportunity for our guests, our first guest, Wayne, to give us your elevator pitch, in less than a minute. Why Milscrum?
Question, Matt. So Milscrum is a company that will meet you where you are. It will help you understand your own system and identify bottlenecks where we can help you the most, whether that's using Scrum as a framework, whether that's using principles and practices from Lean or Kanban, whatever. We will use a theoretical approach, but we want it to be human-centric. We want your people to be at the center and the focus of that change that may be implemented to enhance your service or your product. We want to work together as a partnership, and that could start with a workshop. That could start with some training and coaching around certain frameworks, but it definitely include activity-based learning. It'll be interactive. It won't be 100 PowerPoint slide deck for you to digest and then just be left alone to figure it out. When we turn up, it's activity-based, it's interactive, and it's practical learning that people can use straight away in their day-to-day lives. Whether it's just a simple tool like a Lean Coffee to be able to identify problems as a collective and come up with an action to be able to solve something. And then we can follow on with consulting and coaching as we understand more about the problem.
Wayne, perfect, very succinctly done. So Wayne, thank you so much. It's been an honour chatting to you. It's been a pleasure. The fact that you've been our first guest, Paul and I have been procrastinating about pulling the podcast together for many, many, many months, and we really appreciate your time to come on the podcast. What we will do is at the end, we'll share your details, Wayne. For anyone listening to the podcast, watching the podcast,
Literally just about to say that.
If they want to reach out on LinkedIn, or they want to on the gram or whatever onto your website, we'll somehow, we'll work out how to do that, and then we'll make sure we tag that so that people know. But yeah, And Paul, any final?
Not to worry.
Thank you, Paul. Any final stuff?
No, I just thanks very much for coming along and sharing about everything that Milscrum is and what you can offer. And I really hope you all the best of luck in the future. And I can only see this your business growing from strength to strength from what I've heard, from what Matt's talked, and what you've talked about today. So yeah, thanks, mate.
Cool. Thank you, Matt. Cheers, guys.
Take care.